But a question, is the Big 12 the only conference that's ever messed up?
No. Look, the Pac-12, and that's the other thing. The Pac-12 was in dire straits because Larry Scott, ran that into the rocks. Everything, they had a problem with everything. Officiating, the networks, the TV deal, like everything was bad that happened in the Pac-12. And they weren't even close. Like the Big 12 had teams, knocking on the door. Now Oregon's been there a little bit, knocking on the door of the playoff or being in it. But for the most part, the last 7-8 years, the Pac-12's been nothing. The difference is that people forgot how they were born out of. Their state is not constant chaos like the Big 12 was.
What conferences other than the Big 12 have had teams leave? The ACC.
The ACC.
With Maryland and Rutgers?
Yeah. And didn't seem to care about it because they replaced them with other teams.
The SEC's never lost anybody. Pac-12 lost anybody despite their...
No. That's probably why.
Big Ten? No.
No.
And SEC? You would be stupid to leave either one of those two conferences because of the money that you get. And even if you're not doing well, you still love the fact you get millions and millions of dollars. That's a great point, Craig, about the Big 12 and how they're branded and who they are and what does it take. And no matter how many times now people have beaten UT in football, and UT hopes that changes soon, no matter now that, Oklahoma ran the conference for a long time, but even if they're a logo and a blue blood. They're one of the most elite programs, and that's arguable the best ever. They were winning Big 12 titles, but then the next step, they always seemed to throw up on themselves when it came to being in the college football playoff. And even before that, the BCS, et cetera.
Whenever one of those two schools didn't win a Big 12 title, it was a down year for the conference.
That was the perception.
That was the perception. Yeah. They have fought perception nearly for their entire existence, and that will be a little easier when the perception you're fighting hasn't been created by two of the schools that are supposed to be your top dogs, because nobody threw more fuel on the fire of that perception or discontent in the Big 12 or lack of leadership than probably Texas and Oklahoma ultimately. And they're right. And they made their final points by, going to the SEC. And that's going to be a great move for them. And they're going to make lots and lots of money. And I'm sure they'll win there and they'll be fine because they're big brands. But they did as much in so many ways to kind of create that perception that they were too good for this because this is such a dysfunctional league, right? That's the perception, that they were too good for it. And so, they were part of that as well. Mismanagement and just moves made by commissioners were part of that as well. It's a combination of things. So I think the fact that you don't have, people within your own home poisoning the well, they're not going to be as effective doing that from the outside as they were doing it from inside. That should help alleviate some of that perception. But the perception will then be with them totally out of the way of, now they don't even have Texas and Oklahoma. So there's this new perception of they're even weaker than they were. So that perception has to change. And how you change that again is the major question.
From Justin R., there was the old Big East. They actually